give us the time that we need to be able to work through these details. I think if you look at the record right now, you'll see where we have been definitely investing in education more than any sessions before, any legislatures before.
Joe Samuelson from Upton. So I have a big question and kind of concerns about the question of like local control. So some of the bills and things you've talked about today, the health insurance, the mandated health insurance, giving everybody a universal health plan, seems like it's really taking away the control from the local school boards. And to me, as somebody who works in the district, like I want to be accountable to their school boards, and I think that they have our best interests at heart. You know, being in Northeast Wyoming, you know, the new health insurance plan is based more around the Casper area. Whereas here, it's harder for us to get into that network, and it doesn't work with networks outside of there as well. And so a lot of local school districts make decisions based on like their healthcare plans, based on their location, what's best for their people in that area. All these local school districts have had the opportunity to go to that plan since 2010, and only one has actually done it. And some might want to, and that's fine. But to me, I think we're really taking it out of the hands of constituents, and all of a sudden we start saying, no, mandated, you're gonna be doing this. Everybody's gonna be on this same plan. And going along with that too, I'm seeing like when the ghost employees and the ghost teachers, things like that, like 30% of teachers are not on one of these health insurance plans, and so that money's going to those districts still. The problem with this new health plan, every teacher is going to be on that plan, so it's not saving any money. So me and my wife, who work in the same district, I can be on the plan, she can be on the plan with me. We're mandated to still put her on the plan, and so it's not saving the district money. Likewise, you got somebody, if they have a husband who works in a different industry, they don't need health insurance. Why not allow that district to use those dollars more effectively versus still paying for a health insurance plan for that person? So again, I think we're really taking the opportunities and taking the control out of our local school boards. The people that we have invested in, we've elected, and we vote on them over and over again to see if this is like, and hold them accountable to our communities. And then finally, I wanted to address kind of the ghost teachers that we talked about. Districts have really had to adjust because of some of the lack of funding. You know, we have ghost teachers, the teachers do get funded for certain things, but the base salary of the district that the state funds is $44,000. There's not a district in the state that's got a base salary of $44,000 per teacher. So they're using those extra funds, and we pick out a teacher and we're using extra funds to give teachers more. Or when we had the ECA, there's a lot of years when utilities and things like that were increasing, water was going up, electricity was going up, we still got to heat those schools, we still got to put lights, water in those schools, and the legislature for years just refused to increase an ECA and give any external cost adjustment for those school districts. And so districts are having to compensate those costs using things like that, using the block grant. And so I think taking flexibility from our local school boards to adjust for the problem that they have, the unique characteristics and things that schools have, communities, the values that are within those communities. I think letting school boards and letting our constituents and being accountable to our local communities is better than our state running those things.
Would it be okay if I ask you a question? So, do you agree with the money being siloed to the classrooms so that we can give teachers raises adequately like we had, that was the intention for teachers to get raises, because we have been doing ECAs. I think the last 3 or 4 years, we've done some of the highest ECAs that we've done since I've been in the legislature. There were years that they refused to give an ECA, but the last, I believe, 3 years we've given.
The last ECA we gave was 8.3%, which is the highest we've given. I mean, if you look back at previous administrations or previous legislatures, that has been about double what has been given. And I think what is actually being proposed And this is about a little over an 11% additional increase on top of that. And so that's where we're at. So since being in there, that's what we've seen is an 8.3. And now another part of this that we've changed is kind of how the effect of that is, the discussion of the hedonic wage scale and trying to make it so that it's more balanced. According to PICUS, they wanted to put a baseline out there, so they picked basically the Niobrara County as their baseline. And then they external cost adjusted onto that for every different district and wherever they are based on their costs in those districts. So they tried to find a flat spot where they could land and then start to grow from there. And so they felt like as if, and I'd love to hear from the folks, that was the most fair way to make sure that districts weren't being left. The 44,000 was what they were before. There is no doubt, and the reason that didn't get changed is because we had well, it's her fault. The last recalibration, she couldn't get it done, and so that's how that happened. Is that everything just stayed the same? Nothing moved, and so then they were starting to look for the external cost adjustments, and that was to be able to help compensate for that. But it didn't happen. I mean, and that's why I'm saying this. I think if you give us the time that we need to be able to work through these details, I think if you look at the record right now, you'll see where we have been definitely investing in education more than any sessions before, any legislatures before. And we're, like I said earlier, we're at the highest amount of money being paid in K-12 education in our state's history. And we're not done yet. We've got to get through a session. We've got a lot of work that we've got to do on this, so I'm not saying that it couldn't be higher. Now, the recommendation from PICUS was 99 million in addition. And when we asked people, is that enough? They would never answer. When we said, well, then we need to try to do these things, when we listened and we heard that the small schools were being damaged by some of this, we put that back in there. Here's one other way we've been looking at this, is trying to figure out maybe this is what we need to do. And this was discussion even after we were done moving the bill to see what the districts were going to come back with their numbers. Is just let the districts choose their insurance. And we'll reimburse you for everybody in your district that purchases the insurance. We'll reimburse your district. Send us the bill. But I don't think there's an appetite in there right now to just send a blanket amount of money, and it's not actually sometimes getting to the individuals. So maybe that's the answer. And maybe that's what we need to propose. Pick your own insurance program that works the best for you and your district, and everybody that's on that district, we come back and we reimburse them. If you're not on the insurance, then quite frankly, without making everybody mad or wet hen, I don't think I should have to be buying insurance for somebody that's not going to take it. Because I think that's something that the taxpayers have to come after us for, because they're the ones that hold us up. We're the ones that keep getting, not we're the ones. You're the ones that keep getting sued. You're the taxpayers. They're coming back to you. So the legislature is being charged with responsibility to oversee the budget, and we don't have any control over how that budget's spent. I got school board members out here shaking their heads, but that's the truth. We come up with the block, we plug in the numbers, we send a bill, we send a check. Explain to me, Mr. Mills, if you would, if it's any different than that, because that's exactly how it works. It's based on ADM and your regional costs. The average right now in the state of Wyoming is just short of 22,000. I got districts that are pushing close to 45,000. Some are less. You go to Cheyenne, 16 to 18,000. Statewide average is 22, and that's all based on average daily membership. We send that money to those districts, and then we hold them accountable for how we spend it, supposedly. But then if it's not getting done, I have districts that come back and say, you're not giving us enough money. And they sue us. We got one right now in court. Just the way it is. So that's why if you want to get into this too, and I think this is important, because I think this is on a lot of people's minds out here. Why would we silo the money? Is because the emphasis is on the classroom.
I still want to hear the answer to that, if that's something you could support,
Yeah. Can you
the
support something
siloing
like that?
of the money, because we've been trying to, ever since Charlie has been advocating for this for years and years, that's something we've been trying to do. We thought it was helpful. If it's not, we need to know, because we were trying to be helpful.
So I would say this, I think this is why I say leave to the local school boards. Because each district's different. For instance, our district up in Upton, one of the things that we have really, really emphasized is CTE, career classes, things like that. You know, and so you might hire more teachers, you might hire less. Maybe you want to be more competitive. And, you know, being around the Spearfish, the Black Hills area, depending on where you're at, you might need to be more competitive because you're competing with South Dakota, you're competing with Utah, Montana. So local school boards need the opportunity to make a competitive package, which is part of the healthcare issue. I really don't like the idea of harnessing in, like, you have to spend your money on this. I like the idea of the block grant. I think it's been a beautiful and wonderful creation, and it's helped districts have this certain amount of money, and it's based off of cost adjustments, but it gives them the flexibility to manage it and use it in places where they feel like it's important, depending on, like I said, just the different demographics and what they need, the values of that community. So I would be against the filtering. It has to go here. I like the idea of the block grant, letting our local school boards decide what to do with it.
Thanks. I appreciate the representatives being here today. And my name is Stanley Jasinski. I'm from Weston County, outside of Newcastle. Anyway, just really quick, I've heard some really great dialogue. I just wanted to comment quickly on data centers. Let's call them what they really are, supercomputers. They are massive. The one that Zuckerberg is going to build is about the size of Manhattan. The one that they're building outside of West Virginia is 200 to 300 acres. They consume huge amounts of energy and water. And that's why the people that have demonized nuclear energy in this country for the last however years are now promoting it, because they need it. Our grid in this country will not support these data centers. It'll cost $5 trillion to upgrade our data grid, and the taxpayers will be on the hook for about $1 trillion of this. These things are, whatever good they'll do, there will be good AI, because that's what they're all about. They will be a benefit in medicine. They'll be a great benefit in our nuclear, in our weapons arsenals. But they will be the destruction of our society, like we never saw before, as far as Facebook, anything on social media, what the AI generating things. We already got people marrying their AI bot, or whatever they have to call them. So I'm just saying, whatever, these things are going to take huge amounts of land, huge amounts of energy, and huge amount of water in very arid states, and that's why they're putting them in rural middle America, because they don't want them in their states. And one more thing, as far as windmills, Don Quixote chased windmills. They are the biggest scam going in this country and in the world. The people that produce these windmills is the CCP down in China. They don't use them because they're building coal plants like you can't believe. And then they ship them here, and like you said, they last a minimum amount of time, then we cut them up and put them in our landfills. So those things are insane. Anybody that pushes windmills is insane. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Rick Wary, rancher south of town here. I'm on 3 elected boards. I'm on the fire district, I'm on the predator board, and I'm on the grazing association. I also, I'm 4-H volunteer and a leader, and also do hunter ed. So I'm fairly involved in Weston County. My question is, I talked to quite a few people, And I would say 80 to 90% of the people that I talk to wonder why we passed the property tax bill and cut our local district budgets. The fire district got cut because we have some other funding by 25%. Other districts get cut worse. If you cut property tax again, we're going to get cut by 50%. How are we going to survive? Because people still want the fire truck to show up. People still want the roads bladed. People still want county government. How are we going to survive if we have a 50% cut in our budget? And tires in 2019 were $150, now they're $300. My question to you is, how can you support cutting property taxes when 90% of the people that I talk to were not in support of that?
All right, well, I supported the 25%. I liked it better when it was 25% for 2 years with a backfill. We tried, both the House and some senators tried to get the backfill. We couldn't get it. When it initially started, it was supposed to be only 2 years with a backfill. So there was 1,043 people in my district that signed the petition to get the 50% reduction on the ballot. And I heard from several more that wanted the 25% reduction when we were down there. That being said, unless there is a plan to replace that revenue going forward, I don't favor cutting all residential property tax, which is headed to the Senate. The 50%, you're gonna have to talk to your neighbors because that's on the ballot. That was a citizens initiative because they gathered enough signatures across this state that now it's a ballot initiative. My goal in between now and then is to make sure everybody understands how the monies flow and exactly the decision that is before them. Because I'm not sure that people understand that I'm not saying people in this room, I'm just saying some people in general understand that property tax is local revenues. When I'm out around the state, I hear people talking about, you have $31 billion in savings, and so we shouldn't have to pay property taxes. But those are two different subjects. The $31 billion for one is not that much. So 11 billion is actually what's in the Permanent Mineral Trust Fund. The rest is like the Hathaway Scholarship, the state employees' retirement. It's allocated funds that are there in the investment pool, but they're allocated for specific purposes. They're not just the state hoarding money, it's the state employees paid into that plan. It's things like that. So there's $11 billion, but then that generates interest and revenue to help fund the state government. So when you're talking about reducing property taxes, if you want to cut the state budget, those two things don't equate, because property taxes go to the local districts, they go to your county commissioners, they go to your sheriffs, they go to firefighters, they go to all of those things. Now, in my districts, the assessed valuation fluctuated. I can tell you in Goshen County, it's more than doubled in the last 10 years. So the assessed valuation, bringing that down, that helped everybody for a brief reprieve. But when you start stacking everything on top of each other, that's what citizens have to decide. How are we going to fund local government? How do we want to pay for local government? That's the question before all of you at the ballot in 2026. How do you want to pay for it? Do you want to increase sales tax? It would take 2.45% sales tax if you eliminated all property tax. And then if you did that, our wealthiest county is about 100, depending on what their commissioners do, because commissioners, don't forget, commissioners can adjust the mill levy. So it's not just the state that can do something, county commissioners can adjust your mill levy, which is a it's not a one-size-fits-all approach then, you're doing, you know, the state. But back to our most expensive county, and then I'll get back to you. Our wealthiest county is about $187 million to $200 million. Okay, so 1% sales tax across the state generates $236 million. And that could fluctuate. I mean, that's not a stable source if sales tax fluctuates. So basically, almost 1% of that statewide sales tax is paying for one county. Is that what you want to do? Do you want to talk about an income tax when we start looking at our bills and inflation? Because not just us citizens have inflation, but our government services do. So that's going to be the question before you guys, and that you need to weigh in on. But everyone needs to fully understand the ramifications of those decisions, because they're pretty major. And as a retailer myself, if we put 2.5% on sales tax, I might see all my business run to Nebraska. Or are you really saving anything when that sales tax goes up when you buy a new car? Or when you buy a tractor or a combine? Or is, the other question that needs to be asked is, I mean, is the shift gonna go on to ag and commercial then? And if it does, then you're gonna be paying hidden taxes, because it will be inside of the goods and services you buy. Me as a commercial business, I would just add my increased property taxes into the cost of the goods you buy from me. So would you rather see it on your property tax bill and know exactly what you're paying, or would you rather have it? And that's up to you guys. We work for you, we're your representatives, but I do think everyone needs to fully understand how the revenues flow. And back to you if you had another comment or question.
I was just gonna say that the commissioners don't control the special districts. We're limited to 3 mills. So we have no way to raise more money. And it was the legislature, not the local people, that told us we were taking a budget cut. And I wanna know how that is justified, and we're supposed to suck that up. When we still have to go to the fire. We still have to buy tires. We have less money now and everything. Yes, I know, but everything's twice as much money as it was 10 years ago. The assessments went up, but the costs of everything went up just as much. So we are losing ground.
Okay, appreciate the question, and it's a good and valid question, and I think we're gonna have to have this discussion some more, because we are in the middle of getting ready to have a ballot initiative that's gonna potentially take another 50% off. Here's the reason I voted for it, is because Crook County up in there, our taxes went up on our properties, residential property tax, 76% in 5 years. Weston County's numbers were 44% in 5 years. And I got completely tired of people coming to me and telling me, you know what, did I just get 76% better roads? Did I get 76% better schools? Did I get 76% better anything? We were being driven by COVID, 2019 to 2020, right in there. And we saw exponential increases in the values of all of our properties. And because we based everything on fair market value, we had nothing to say about it. If there were 5 sales in the area, assessors were automatically required to reevaluate. If you paid whatever you paid for your home, it didn't matter. It's what the guy next to you was willing to pay for. So here's the issue that I was faced with by my constituents up there in that area, and also here in Weston County. They said, where did the money go? They said, inflation did not increase 44%. Of course, not in Crook County, 76%. We're talking about another half again on our property taxes, residential property taxes. And so what they asked me to do, and see, another part of this, and Cheri alluded to it, the House bill that we proposed was the increase, but we had backfill for all of the hardship counties, all 8 counties in the state of Wyoming.
Explain backfill.
Backfill was that anyone, like special districts or any of the counties that were shorted because of the reduction in the property tax, the state would come and backfill it so they were kept whole. And that was attached to our bill that left the House. We passed it in the House when I was in the House leadership. through the House, we got it through, it hit the Senate, and it died right there. They wouldn't even take it up. And I think Cheri can confirm that. So we had money in the bill to backfill all the 8 hardship counties are in the state of Wyoming. The Senate was not entertaining. So it passed the House, and we did it. We tried everything we could. If you go back and look at the videos, you can even see it on the videos when we were finally coming to the conference committee. Scott Heiner went in from my side, from over on the House side, and he made another offer for $75 million in backfill, and they said, no way. So this whole thing's dead if you guys try that again.
And we tried to amend it, and some of us from the hardship counties on our side too, we tried to amend the backfill in to keep us whole, but they wouldn't have it. Senate leadership and the governor wouldn't do it, so.
And so this was the question that was posed to me by several people up in that area, especially hit by that 76% increase, was which would you rather have? 2 years of reduction or ongoing 25%? Because it was only set for 2 years. They said, well, we would rather have 25% ongoing. That would make more sense. What's that, sir?
Small portion of the people,
Well, I would love to have a conversation in this room. I don't think people, and you're right, it had an effect. But everybody else says, what about the extra money that we were all paying for those 5 years when things were going up like a rocket ship? Where did that money go?
I can say in the fire district, we did see that huge increase. We're very frugal with our money, and we're pretty good about fires. So I don't think anybody's complaining about where that money went.
And if we can continue to see things as we've seen, and continue to appreciate and value, it's gonna overtake that 25% pretty quickly. And so another issue, like Cheri said, is what's gonna happen with the ballot initiative. They're proposing another 50%. Now, I don't know if there's enough appetite for that or not. But when we made the discussion and we had the actual conversation, I think the Senate's version was 50%.
It's 50%.
It was 50%, and we negotiated it down to 25% ongoing.
We shaved it down to.
It was gonna be 50%,
Yeah,
with
it
no
just,
backfill.
and it was passing too, so. But the thing that, the discussion that has to happen now is there are several property tax bills. There's elimination of all residential property tax. The House will see the increase in the sales tax, and I keep hearing, hopefully that won't see the light of day, but I'm not in the House.
Well, here's where we're here, got a whole group of people. How many of you right here, just raise your hands, and don't worry about it, would support an increase in sales tax to offset property taxes in Wyoming? How many of you?
I'm not sure.
Don't look at your neighbor, just look up here.
I don't know.
Not very many. See, and here's the other part of this that we're hearing discussions right now. Montana doesn't charge these sales tax. So what are we doing here? We're gonna push business on those outside border areas into Montana even more than they are now.
In Nebraska.
Do business in Nebraska.
In Colorado.
Yeah, and so what do you do?
Gordo and Gray all the way. I think it would be an epic. It's what Chuck's been picking the fight with him forever. Mark has responded a couple of times this year and gotten hot under the collar. Says he wasn't hot under the collar. I can believe it this last time that he maybe thought, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and ask him to step outside because it's what a Wyoming guy would do. I actually think it was a good play by him. I think he follows it up right now and says, hey, you know what? I think me and Chuck Gray ought to settle this like men. And so I'm going to run for the U.S. House seat.
Let's settle it on the ballot instead of the ring.
Yeah, and God bless Jenny Gordon. And I know that's a burden on families and everything if he does win. Chuck Gray is full speed ahead on it, but I want to see it, man. I want to see Gray Gordon. And I think, we'll close on that, Alexis. Let's see it. Give the people the grudge match that they've been waiting for. Give the Wyoming voters the race that they deserve.
We're gonna push business on those outside border areas into Montana even more than they are now.
In Nebraska.
Do business in Nebraska.
In Colorado.
Yeah, and so what do? We raise it to, I'll compensate for it so that you don't have to pay residential property taxes or property tax in general, but it pushes business outside the state of Wyoming.
So there's that one, there's the sales tax, there's the reduction of the percentage from 9.5 to 8.3. There is the removing the sunset of the long-term homeowners exemption. There is, what else am I forgetting? There's several property tax bills, so you guys need to be talking to your legislators, and you're talking to us right now. I've told you where I'm at. One of the revenue committee, the chairman and one of the members on the Senate side came and asked me if I'd support their bill to eliminate. And I said, okay, so how are we gonna fund our local governments? Because one of the things about this is a stable source. You're not beholden to us to come and beg for money. It comes to you, you pay your bills, you do your services, that's how it works. I said, how are you going to replace that? And they said, we're going to cut spending. And I said, what spending? And they said, the Wyoming Business Council. And I said, but that's two separate pots of money. The Wyoming Business Council is state funds, and it won't automatically flow back to our locals. And so I'm not sure, I just want everyone to be clear that it's two separate things. There's state funds, and then these are local funds. And the funds collected for the schools, they go into the school pot of money, and you're either a recapture district or you're a hardship district, and the funds are reallocated depending on what you are. It's important that people, before they go to the voting box and the voting booth, know exactly, we have that all clear so that they can make an informed choice. And I would never tell anyone how they should vote or what to think. Just the information so that they know exactly what they're doing.
And as far as this is concerned going forward, sir, I supported it and helped sponsor it to backfill to our hardship counties because they just simply don't have the volume to be able to make up those kind of cuts. And if they're wanting to push something like that again, I would not support anything like that unless it had backfill for our hardship counties.
The problem I see is you got the ball rolling now. It's really hard to stop the ball rolling on this property tax. You should have stopped and started.
The 25%? Well, the alternative was 50%, and that's what we held off. And there again, I mean, when you do the math on this, a 25% reduction on a 76% increase in Crook County put us back at over 20% increase year over year up there for those 5 years. So we were still above where we would be normally pre-COVID. So the dollars were there. Now, did we have a 20% increase? Figured 10%? So there were still other dollars there. I do, and the same folks down here, when I have my meetings in Upton and around here, also wanted that 25% relief. They did.
That was our only option.
Hmm?
That was our only option.
Well, your other option was actual backfill.
No, what he was saying is, not even get the ball rolling to start with. So to say that we were voting in favor of the 25, that was the only option we would give between 50 and 25. Of course, 25%.
Based on 44% increase and a 76% increase, yeah, people want relief. And there's no end in sight as we continue to see land development prices continue to climb.
Well, but we do have the 4% cap now.
Well, the 4% cap was almost gone, and it came back. That was challenged just the other day, and the governor kicked it back out.
Right, but we do have it. So we have the 4% cap. But at the ballot box, it will be, it will be cumulative. So you've got the 25% decrease, 4% cap, and then if voters approve another 50%, that's going to be cumulative. So, but again, we didn't do any of that. There was a voter initiative that did that, so.
There's something else on that 25% reduction. It's not mandatory. You have to apply for it. If you do not want that 25% reduction on your residential property tax, then do not apply for it. Because you don't have it automatically. You have to live in this county, this state for 8 months out of the year to qualify. And you have to re-qualify each year. So it is optional. It is not an automatic. So if people in this area and folks that are there in all those districts, you do not have to sign up for it. But for folks that want that relief, it's available.
And in Goshen County, I can tell you only 650 people have signed up for it, which is kind of minuscule. And I think, is it like 480 people here or? 450 people have signed up here. So that's where we're at right now. If that helps at all.
Well, this is Mick Bone from Newcastle. Glad to be here with you all. A couple of things. First of all, pro-life, very much in agreement with your heartbeat bill. The baby's heartbeat starts at 18 days. So I would definitely support a heartbeat bill, anything we can do to protect life. Secondly, on the Supreme Court justice issue, I definitely want to be able to vote on those somehow, whether it's the legislature doing it. Problem I see is what we're facing in the feds right now, and that is, as Cheri mentioned, a 2/3 majority vote. Well, we have all these people hung up because of the filibuster. And so how would that work in our legislative branch as far as getting Supreme Court justices approved or appointed, whatever that's going to look like for future reference?
Thank you for that question, Mick. And I think we have an anti-filibuster rule in our state, but I would have to look that up. But we've got some provisions against that, and we've even got, not on committee of the whole, and I don't know what the Senate confirmation, because nobody's ever filibustered there. We have limits on debate there, but I do know that. So we just have to make sure that that was lined out in our rules so that we couldn't filibuster.
Thank you. I'm Marty Gertman, local resident most of my life. Okay. I have a message here from the mayor of Upton, and so I just want to relay that to you. He's down in Cheyenne for some type of federal court case, but he asked, the mayor of Upton says that RER wouldn't even be in Upton if it wasn't for the Wyoming Business Council, setting Weston County and our country up for self-sufficiency and critical rare earth minerals wouldn't even be on the table if it weren't for the Business Council. And my tack onto that is the first time that I read about the Wyoming Business Council just being wiped off of the budget, the first thing that came to my mind is the story of one of our cabinet secretaries that had a hunting dog that just was no good, so she took it out to the gravel pit and just shot it with no rehabilitation, no checking out if there's something else. And so I was also at a show in Vegas with, and there were 13 businesses that were represented at that show. And this thing means something. When you walk around with this on your chest, people stop you. It's a brand, and that's what they sell, is that brand. And so I have no problem if you want to let's use that word that we're using, the recalibration of the Wyoming Business Council. That's fine. Take that thing like a salt shaker, clean it out, and take the grains of sand out of there and the pieces of rice and the pepper and clean the thing out. That's fine. But it's in my opinion, it's a worthwhile endeavor. And on the other one, it's because I asked. I asked if I could put 3 up. I got the county commissioner exemption. The other one is on your Supreme Court justices. I would ask that it be approved by the Senate, but I would also ask that they have at least 20 years of prosecuting experience. You have one that was just put on here that didn't have that type of experience. She got to be the head of something, but she was always in the government type of stuff. She never stood in front of a jury. And that's not the way it should be. These are tough cases that this AG has to do. Yeah. And they need that experience to know how we are, how we feel in this state. So I'm all for you guys, but I would like the Senate to confirm them. But have that understanding that you have stood before and we're a lawyer. Well, thank you, sorry. Thank you, Rita.
Yeah, those are excellent ideas, Marty, and we will definitely take those with us down there. But, yeah, we've got some Supreme Court justices right now that are, to me, ill-equipped to be in that position. And so, yes, and that's why I think this has to happen. I think right now, we got to strike while the iron's hot. This has to be addressed. We can't just hope that this will go away, because there are so many more cases that are coming that are pivotal to our state and the direction we go. We have to have that kind of mature leadership, I think, and I think the way we do it is through Senate confirmation. As far as the Wyoming Business Council portion of that, I know the Business Council has done some stuff. I know they've done some very important things. I know they were involved in RER. I have had multiple conversations with a lot of people that have dealt with the Wyoming Business Council, and that has been the consensus view, is that it can be better. By their own data last year, they spent $50 million and they built 40 jobs at a cost of $1.2 million per job. And so my question is then, okay, if you take that 50 million, if we would just taken that 50 million and taken it to each one of the 23 counties and divided it up equally, would we have done as much good for the long-term use for our municipalities and our counties as that $1.2 million per job that we generated with it last year did?
Can I give you an opinion?
Sure.
County commissioners are lousy economic developers.
The thing with economic development, and here is my take on economic development, you've got to have regulatory reduction and reform. There's a gentleman up here, I just cited it in that article I cited about the Wyoming Business Council. Probably you want to throw things at me, you can read it in Cowboy State Daily, and it's just supposed to be coming out in your local papers. I stopped and talked to the guy. He's doing a frac sand operation up here on top of Pine Ridge. Did you get contacted by the Wyoming Business Council or any state agency that wanted to help you start your business? He's going to put 25 million of his own dollars in that thing up there. And he said, I don't even know what the Wyoming Business Council is. Never heard of them. I said, well, would you? He said, I don't need them. He said, you got sand. He said, that's all I need. He said, but I do have a major problem with your DOT. He said, but otherwise, Wyoming, he told me, I can give you his number, he would love to visit with you. He said, Wyoming's the most business-friendly state. He said, and I deal in a lot of states. He said, but for as red a state as you guys are, you got the nastiest DOT of any state he's ever dealt with. He would love to visit with you. He said, Wyoming's the most business-friendly state. He said, and I deal in a lot of states. He said, but for as red a state as you guys are, you got the nastiest DOT of any state he's ever dealt with. As far as commercial trucking industry. He said, that's my problem. He said, if you could help with that, he said, I can't find a state in the union that's better at doing business than Wyoming. He said, I'd love to do business here. And I would encourage all of you, make a loop, go from Moorcroft, go right up over the top, go top Pine Ridge, and just see what's being built up there. New industry, employing a ton of people. I hate to guess what he's got in that building. But he's going to be providing frac sand to the oil that's quickly developing out here. And he had no input from the Wyoming Business Council. I've got people that call me, and when they hear us talking about the Wyoming Business Council, and I'm not here to dish, because I know there's some folks here that have family that is involved with the Business Council. But all I hear is that thing has too many chiefs and not enough Indians. Too many little pieces all running around want to talk to each other, and not enough money is actually getting onto the ground. I said, well, what's your suggestion? And you know what they did, Marty? They suggested exactly what you did. You got to tear the thing down and start over and make it not as big. It can be just much more effective in their opinions as what we have right now. And I don't know about you, but I cannot justify $1.2 million to create a job. I would rather that stuff go to the municipalities.
Well, Mr. Speaker, sometimes I think numbers get put out there and we never get to see the sidewalls on that. What is the secretary of that one job? We don't always get to see that. We don't always understand that. And there are other pieces of that that we don't ever get to see either. When little groups get to have trainings and those type of things. Those don't always have a cost factor to them, but they have immense value to them. And I have read where it's going to be divvied out, but okay, we tried that. They centralized it. Maybe that's for the better, maybe that's for the worse, I don't know. But what I'm saying is, don't shoot the dog.
Certainly don't put it in the book.
And don't write it in a book. That's exactly, and if you're up for vice president, keep your mouth shut.
Good point. But I think in this situation, what we're really looking at, and there again, ladies and gentlemen, think about this. This isn't a done deal. I don't stretch. This is a recommendation. But we believe that there are better ways to manage those dollars and get a higher return on the investment. Many of those people may take that thing over, reinvent it. It might go to the Wyoming grants, group, to be able to manage those grants. There's a lot of different things. But right now, the consensus view, and it's not only for me, I don't know about Cheri thinks, but it's by and large, it needs rework. We can't keep doing business as usual. And to just go and say, you know what, if you just don't rock the boat, and God forbid, don't go blow something up. I mean, when people get out of this room and they start talking to me one-on-one and they're not wondering what their neighbor's gonna say about them, they'll say, that is a lot of money to spend on one job if it did. So I don't know if I'd do that or not, but they won't say that in a room like this because they all want to see everybody wave at each other when they go down the street. But the reality of it is we've got to redo that, in my mind. Now, whether or not that gets done, that'll be up to the legislature. We'll see if it even happens. Josh Durrell gets paid $288,000. He's the 5th highest paid employee in the state of Wyoming. And since the Wyoming Business Council has been in force, we have seen zero increase in our GDP in the state of Wyoming. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been invested with zero GDP growth. I don't know any of you in here that can manage that way and still survive unless you're doing it on other people's money.
Remember the governor,
We have a line.
the governor approves all that stuff,
Right.
as well as a lot of the people down there in Cheyenne.
Mr. Chair, Tyrell.
Hi, Tyrell Owens, the current mayor of Newcastle, Wyoming. So I was gonna advocate tonight too, because when I heard the business council was on the chopping block or proposed to be, I was kind of upset about it. We have a current project with the business council with the city of Newcastle and the Harvard Growth Lab. There's a lot to be said about working with a group that gives you ideas or a direction to go. We're looking at our town and wondering how we can improve it. So, any outside, somebody looking at it from 30,000 feet is a positive thing in my opinion. I was actually invited to go up to Sheridan because they were having some kind of event, and I was asked to advocate for them there. But then, Representative Neiman, you said something about fraud that was involved with the business council, and I would actually like you to expound on that a little bit.
I'd have to get to the exact figures, and I'll phone a friend here, but I'll give you before you leave, the COVID money that the Wyoming Business Council was designated to hand out. That's where the fraud occurred. And I'll have to get, Scott Heiner has that, and we asked that question, and we actually talked to people on the floor, legislators on the floor. So don't leave before I give you that exact information, so you have it before you leave, because you need to know it. When we addressed the idea of going through and researching and checking for any fraud from that money, I was actually told by a legislator, well, as long as it stays in Wyoming, it doesn't matter. So, with the idea that if I rob a bank, and as long as I spend it locally, it's not an issue. And so that's another part of this conversation that is also weighing in on. And so, but Mayor, don't leave. And as far as the projects that you have actually ongoing, those projects are going to continue. But there's another if the Business Council does go away and is reshaped and reformed, your project will be handled probably through the Wyoming Grants Office. And so then we'll continue to finish those projects and stuff like that. And that may be the place where we develop new projects. And it'll be more refined. And hopefully we can learn something from some of the past things we need to learn from. But don't, unless you have to take off, I'll quit right now, I'll get a hold of it. But don't leave before I get you that information, sir, because you need to hear that.
I appreciate it, Representative Neiman. All I can say is that our, up to this point, our experience with the Business Council's been positive. And we even started a new economic development committee with the city council to engage in the activities involved with the project. So it's been a good experience. And then Cheri was gonna let me ask one more question, since I'm the mayor. Mayor exemption, yeah. We had the opportunity to meet with Senator Steinmetz before this meeting, which was a positive experience. Thank you, Senator. You're talking to a group of people that are one-year hardship counties. This is one of the top 3 poorest counties in the whole state. We send all of our people out of town, you know, to the mines, and we do have good industry here in town, like the refinery, but you know, we don't like make a lot of money in Weston County, and so it's becoming increasingly hard to deal with our infrastructure improvements. And one of the biggest complaints that we get, of course, are the streets. And in talking with my public works director and some of my staff and community members, I mean, there are not a lot of pots of money to go to the state to ask for improvements on roads. So we have to get creative, and it's been a big brick wall. And like I said, it's one of the biggest complaints that I get in my community. And so I was just wondering if you folks had any ideas about how we can improve the access for funding for our paving and infrastructure for roads. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being here and for our meeting earlier. One of the things we talked about there is the consensus block grant money and trying to utilize that for some multi-jurisdictional projects and or MRG funds as well. I would say that the Business Council is not the only conduit that we have to get funds to counties if we need to. OSLI has dispersed a lot of funds over the years as well, and so they have a lot to do with the COVID money too, and emergency funds and different things. So I think we do need to be looking at that. Mike, who's from here, and I don't see him tonight, always tells me, Cheri, you need to remember, our communities are an investment. They're not a drain on the state. They're an investment in our people and in our communities. And I tend to agree with that and think that we need to just be looking at those avenues again and seeing what we can do.
And to follow up on that, that's a really good point. And I just had a long visit with Jeremiah Ryan. He is with the Commissioners Association, but he also works with Ashley Hart Street with the municipalities with Wyoming. And we were talking about the consensus grants. I've had multiple people come to me that they went away years ago, and they said that was some of the best, well-managed monies that were ever offered to the counties. It would have made the municipalities and the counties work together to select projects that were important and work through that. Well, then when I called Jeremiah and had that conversation with him, he said, well, it's ironic that you would bring it up. He said, because we've been talking about it. And we were waiting for it kind of to see where things kind of settled out. I said, to me, that makes the most sense to have that conversation about going back. If something worked, you know, kind of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so I'm working with him right now, and he is sending me all of the information in regards to how that worked. He said it was before he even got to be the commissioner lobbyist, but he's putting that information together right now. And so I would love to chat with you about how that worked and what would be a good way of doing that, because if you stop and think, one of the issues, and I talked to Jeremiah about this, was a lot of times in these programs, we have a lack of consistency. You know, because you don't know. Everything, it's all up one year and down the next. May be there next year, may not be. And in that situation, it requires 70%, is my understanding. And for anybody that maybe, I don't know, Marty Was it 70% agreement in the county between the municipalities, and you all have representatives, no matter how large or small? They all had to get together, and 7 out of 10 of them had to agree on the project, and then it went ahead. And then the issue that I saw in it, as I talked to these folks, is that a lot of times the money went away, then the next community that was waiting in line didn't get anything. You know, so they were just, you know, they got what the little boy shot at. So my thought to him was, why don't we figure out a revenue stream? I mean, if we've got these dollars and we're generating this revenue that's going into that, and combine some of these different, you got MRG money, you got Wyoming Business Council money, you got all these different things. To me, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, or tell me if this is all a bunch of hogwash, but the investment in the counties and in the municipalities is where the real need of the good gets done. Because, you know, you can go and build little businesses and stuff like that, or big businesses, but if you, I've often said, I've got cities that'll say, my pipes are too small. I can't even move water, I can't move sewage, I've got curb and gutter, like you said to your point, streets are falling apart. You know, how attractive is a community when the people come in, you can't maintain the streets, and the curb and gutter's gone, or you don't have, you know, infrastructure, the stuff that's not as glamorous under the ground, that's not ready to develop on. And so that was the conversation he and I were having, was what would that look like to go back to that type of grant funding, where he said there was evidently some pretty specific boards on the side of it, you know, or guardrails. But he said, but if we had a more consistent form of revenue, so that it wasn't maybe, maybe not, do something in statute. And there again, it goes back to what we've been discussing. This is about local control. I would rather, honestly, just me, I'd rather have sent Wyoming Business Council money to the towns and to the counties. And do streets, do infrastructure, do sewer line, water line. Invest in your communities, that's what's gonna work. Because they're constantly down there wrestling each other for MRG money. You know, I got this project and I need to know somebody in the know to help me get some project or whatever. Well, if we could route and do a better job of organizing that money and get it to the counties, and let the counties work it out. You as municipalities and counties, sit down and work out what's the most important things to do to help your county.
In addition to the weekly printed version of the newsletter journal, we also promote our community and share important information on our award-winning website, newslj.com, and in our weekly email newsletter, Nuke Now. We also connect with readers through various social media platforms and invite you to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can even take a look at a recent meeting of the City Council, School Board, or County Commission on our YouTube channel. We do hope that you will go to newslj.com and subscribe today, and we look forward to making all of our great content available to you. But regardless of your level of support, we thank you from the bottom of our hearts for doing your part to preserve a free and independent local press.
This project, and I need to know somebody in the know to help me get some project or whatever. Well, if we could route and do a better job of organizing that money and get it to the counties, and let the counties work it out. You as municipalities and counties, sit down and work out what's the most important things to do to help your county. I mean, here's why I say that. It really irked me when I watched a legislator try to get some money for Platte County to fix a water tank that was leaking that they were concerned was gonna break. And on the floor, that became a political football. It wasn't the fact that the community needed help. It became our top executive and some legislators having a pissing contest over who was gonna get a leg over who. And it shouldn't be that way. And that's what it turned into. We finally got it done, but it boils down to all this nonsense, kiss the ring, you gotta come around, you know, blah, blah, this, I'm gonna break you to eat, and then I'll give you some money that you know that you need. The water tank is spewing water, and it's icing up. You don't think that needs fixed? There's an emergency, looks like an emergency. Oh, I think we can make you wait. We'll just get you to come around. Shouldn't be that way. You know, so if we can do something like that, combine some of these things potentially, just ask them. And maybe make it more amenable to the community so that the counties can actually get something done. and do it with a revenue stream that doesn't look like it's just gonna evaporate in the wind. Heavens knows when. And then other communities can get on board because they know that there's gonna be funds coming for their projects and get things done so that they can help their citizens. To me, that makes more sense, but, you know.
I think what you're advocating for is the same thing that I think we need to do with energy projects, and that is similar to water development or wildlife natural trust fund account. You've got monies coming in every year. Water development has a percentage of severance taxes. It's about $29 million every year, and that's why those water projects can go through stage 1, 2, and 3, and we develop them over time, and they're well vetted, so everybody's comfortable with them. But I don't, maybe the consensus block grant could go through something similar to that and have some kind of a system like that. But it's clear to me that our infrastructure in our cities and counties is failing, just like our irrigation infrastructure. We've got over $2 billion worth of liabilities in that across the state. Some of those are federal projects, some are not. And so if we can't take care of what we have, maybe we shouldn't be building new things, I think is where a lot of us are at. I mean, having been living in a county that is having trouble taking care of our irrigation infrastructure, and we had our tunnel collapse that is now up to $150 million, and thankfully we've got it fully funded now. You see the effects of delay over time on projects, and you also see the huge liability that exists in the fact that these may not be the glamorous projects, but they're the ones we all rely on every single day for the water to come on, for the toilet to flush, all of those things. And that's, I think, where some of the rub with the business council is for some people is, do we really want to build new things or invest in new businesses coming in when we don't even have the infrastructure to support it? Or like you said here, with the gas line not being large enough to even grow. So I think that is the delicate balance that we need to walk, the tightrope we need to walk in this state. I mean, obviously no one wants to be stagnant, but at the same time, we still have to maintain what we have.
And I think it's gonna be a heavy lift to do that, and that's why I would encourage you to call and talk to Jeremiah. He's in the process of trying to gather that stuff in front of the commissioners and other folks that are here. We're gonna look at that, and it's gonna take everybody working together to see if we can come up with a really good system that will actually do the job and get the dollars on and in the ground where they need to be to do the most good for the long-term health of the communities.
Hi, I'm Nancy Darnell. I live in Weston County on the south side. So Cheri is our representative there. And I want to thank Cheri for the great article that she had on Wyoming State, Wyoming program, Wyoming's Next Crisis. That was a really great article, and I wanted to thank you for that. And my question then is, when this is a financial session for the legislature, what's going to happen? How many more of these wild projects are going to come in, and there'll be no rules or laws to prevent them from running over the landowners? And that's causing a lot of trouble, I know, in Niobrara County. And are there any bills that will be passed besides financial ones? Have any of those been introduced?
Well, thank you for that. And yes, the energy bill that I've been talking about all night would address some of that, but also it would require legislative approval for projects like that. Also, depending on what happens with the governor's energy matching funds, he's been utilizing those for several projects that may or may not be what we'd like, and there's a lack of public process there. So I just want to bring that back out into the open so that we have public process and everybody gets to weigh in, especially affected landowners. We were in Douglas talking about Sidewinder and Pronghorn the other day with the State Land and Investment Board, and I bet there were 300 people there because they had never had their voices heard before the state let the leases, or at least not enough of them showed up. And so we really have got to get this back in the public eye so that we're not just beholding to out-of-state developers, but it's our citizens that are deciding our fate, so.
Thank you. I hope you'll keep working on that very hard. To me, that is the largest issue that we have today, even though so far there hasn't been much of that in Weston County. But over the whole state, that's a huge issue. The next one, though, that's most important to settle somehow is how are we going to keep our fire department, our hospital, our ambulances, if we continue to cut the taxes.
Right, I agree with you on that, and that is some of the rural healthcare transformation grant. We hope will help with that, with EMS and our hospitals for sure. And like we've said before, the ballot initiative is where the citizens will decide. So I think these are community conversations we need to be having at the coffee shop and around town and discussing this and making sure everybody understands. There might be people that would rather have a dirt road than a paved road, and that's okay. I mean, whatever people decide, but that will be at the ballot box. And so just as long as everybody has all the facts, because one of the things I didn't touch on last time is the fact that in our Constitution, one of the provisions that is keeping us from an income tax is a property tax, because if to implement an income tax, you would have to basically start our own IRS in Wyoming. So that you could deduct all of your sales tax and all of your property tax in order to then deduct it from your income tax. It was a very ingenious way that the people that amended our Constitution to say that had of keeping an income tax at bay. But we have to ask ourselves, if property tax goes away from that discussion, does the income tax discussion become one that we will have? And it really makes me wonder if that isn't knocking at our doorstep if we do eliminate property taxes altogether or reduce them to the point that they don't provide for our local services any longer. So it's up to the people. What level of service do you want? What are you expecting from your local governments? What are they mandated to do? They're mandated first and foremost with health, safety, and welfare, just like the legislature is. So those are things, I mean, the sheriff is not optional. All of those things they're not optional things, but road maintenance could be, another infrastructure, libraries, things like that. So people are just going to have to make that decision at the ballot box and have a honest conversation about what these things mean and ask the hard questions, because until we have answers to those, I don't think we can make an informed decision.
And just a little bit of feedback from Mayor. He just got back to me, Scott Heiner did it. I'm going to give you his phone number that you can chat with him. He said based on a 5% sample, they found that a 1/3 fraud rate in that monies that were distributed. So for COVID, 1/3 of those out of a 5% sample was all they were allowed to sample. Out of that 5% sample, 1/3 of it was found to be fraud.
So I think we have time for one more question. We had set this from 7 to 9, and we're, I think, already 9:15, is that right? 9:15. So I think we have time for one more question, and then we should probably wrap it up.
I'm Carol Thurman. I'm from here in Newcastle. I just get so frustrated every year when it comes election time and the newspaper puts out interviews and does a wonderful job, and there's ways to find out how to vote for everybody. But then we get to the ballot box and there are judges that I'm asked to retain, and I've never even heard their name. You know, I don't even know who they are. I don't know how to research them. There needs to be some transparency. If it's a judge that we have to retain, then we need to be able to have the information to know if they're worth keeping. You know, and I found one that was horrible, and I could tell all of 10 people, don't vote for her. She still got back in because there was no dissemination of information. So we need to get that built into whatever you're doing with you know, with your retaining the Supreme Court judges. If I'm gonna vote whether we should retain them or not, I need to have the information to be able to do that.
Thank you for that. Yeah, we agree with you. And the Supreme Court, you can look up their decisions and how they voted. In other lower levels, I think the problem exists even more, but it's not easy to do. So I agree, just like our votes are transparent, I would like to see theirs be transparent. I don't know that we can get that done this session because we're, 15 days away? But I would love to see the Judiciary Committee, the Speaker assign this to the Judiciary Committee over the interim. And so then we could maybe look into that and figure out how to do it correctly and what it will require, because it could cost some money, because then you've got to somehow have either a system or a person that keeps track of all of that, and it could cost some money, but I think it would be worth it in the end. So thank you guys all for coming out tonight. I think you've all got our contact information if you need us during session. We do get a lot of emails, so for me, it's easier if you text me, and if you send me an email and you text me and say, I sent you an email, that helps a ton, because we get thousands a day, believe it or not, and it seems to be increasing every session. So we don't try to miss, or I don't, I'm sure you don't either, try to miss any emails, but sometimes that happens, sometimes things fall through the crack. But if you text me and say, hey, I sent you an email, give me your name or your email address, I will make sure to look you up, I can do a search. But sometimes we just can't get through all of them and do our work too. So that would be really helpful to communicate with us, and I hope tonight was helpful for all of you.
And ma'am, to your point, I will get a hold of my Judiciary Chairman, Art Washington, because I do believe what you just brought up should be an interim topic, and we can study that through the course of right after the session. We can be in that process.
Good.
And we can try to figure out how that would look, you know, and what would be a good system that would be able to provide more information when we're moving again for these judges. And again, for myself, all of you, thank you for being here. I mean, if we're going to have good conversations, try to get this information back. These decisions are not made yet. There's recommendations, they've been suggested, we can change them. May not change them, may change them, but we can't do anything without you guys' input. I will stick around here against my wife's better judgment, dear to have on my way home. If you need to corner me over here and really tear my ear off the side of my head and do it, you know, so that I can reattach it later, please do. And I'd love to hear from you. I do want to hear what you have to say and why you're concerned about some of the decisions, recalibration. I know I've got a lot of educators in this room here today. Please come talk to me. Please. I mean, I would love to have you come and visit one-on-one, and we can have a conversation. Tell me what's on your mind. I need to know those things. And so I encourage you to do so. Please don't ever be afraid to reach out and just, I mean, nobody else is afraid of calling and chewing my hind end. You shouldn't be either. So please, by all means, get a hold of me, let me know what's on your mind so we can work it out. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for coming, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn. All in favor of said motion? Have a great night, everyone. Thank you.